From the Studios, this is Calypso Social Media Podcast. I'm RebelRebel Apia Jr. And in this episode, we are breaking down how agencies can unlock better performance, move faster, and innovate at a scale using social display advertising. Social display advertising, commonly known as just social display, is one of those formats many marketers have heard about, but few truly understand how to use strategically. Now, as digital advertising becomes more competitive and performance-driven, agencies can no longer afford to treat creative and distribution as separate conversation. Joining me today on Riverside is Greeff, founder of RebelRebel, a media sales business helping brands and agencies build better digital advertising experiences. Danny is a veteran of the African programmatic industry and also advises international ad tech companies entering and navigating the African market. Today we'll unpack what social display really means, why it matters right now, and how agencies can begin leveraging it as a creative and performance advantage. Let's get into the conversation with Danny Greeff.
All right. So, Danny, first of all, I want to thank you for deciding to join me on an episode of Calypso Social Media. I know it was a short notice, via LinkedIn, but then you decided to join to talk about social display. And basically, that will be the conversation that we are having today. But then we can't talk about social display without talking about RebelRebel. That is your company. So I want you to take us through the founding days of RebelRebel. Most importantly, why you founded RebelRebel.
All right, great. And, thank you so much for inviting me onto the podcast. I've obviously been a fan for a long time, and obviously we've been chatting on LinkedIn and email in various different cases. So yeah, it's a privilege to be on here, and thank you to all your viewers for watching this, really, when they do. Talking about the founding of RebelRebel, the founding of RebelRebel and social display are very much intertwined. To give you a quick background on myself, I've been in programmatic advertising since 2010. And while I'm always have been the biggest fan of, the technology behind media buying and programmatic media buying specifically, I always felt that the creative opportunities available to us as programmatic buyers were incredibly limited. So we would spend time building out these great campaigns with lots of data and different kind of, programmatic dark arts. And when we'd get to launching, creative would be late, creative would not be great. And, campaigns would suffer because creative is a big part of what makes a good campaign perform. So that frustration led me to kind of start looking for other opportunities and how we could help our clients, specifically at the business I was working at that stage. And it came to a head in late 2017. I was at a conference in New York City with a colleague of mine, and we quite literally bumped into a guy called Casey Sarin, who had just started a company called Spaceback. And we got to talking, and he told me all about his dream or his idea of social display, which was completely, unknown at that stage. There was no category. I really liked the idea. We exchanged details. I came back to South Africa and launched the first social display campaign outside of North America in early 2018 for, I think it was PepsiCo at that stage. And after seeing that seeing the results of that campaign, I was hooked, and I decided to start thinking about building a business around just offering this creative platform to brands and agencies in South Africa. So RebelRebel came about after another trip overseas to see the guys at Spaceback in San Francisco in 2019. Kind of told them what I was going to do. They gave me the green light to represent the product throughout Africa. Came back and registered the company, and as you can say, the rest is history. So I've been working with the team at Spaceback on social display since then, and it's I'm proud to say it's never been better. Like, the category is very competitive at this stage, but Spaceback continues to lead the way in terms of what kind of functionality they're bringing to the social display category.
Thank you, Danny, for that. And
No problem.
Viewers and audience, I'm sure you've heard of a new term here, social display. Please hold on to that. Daniel will expatiate what social display is in a minute. But Danny, before you explain what social display is, I want to know, you've worked with African and international ad tech players. From what you are saying, how you founded RebelRebel. But what I want to know is how would you describe the current state of digital advertising in Africa?
I think it's an interesting state at this point in time, simply because I feel like it's dominated by global entities like Google, Meta, and TikTok at this point in time. Down in South Africa, obviously, TikTok is a very dominant force, and I know that throughout the rest of Africa, there's only a couple of countries that they're monetizing in. But from the conversations we're having with clients, we see a lot of spend moving those ways. So I think it's, if we look at the mature markets like the US and Europe, they've gone through this kind of evolution and are sitting in different spaces now. So I think Africa is kind of going through that, and we've seen it all before in the other markets. And it's important to note kind of like, we have to just understand what's best for our clients. And I think us as Africans are, I think, a lot more in tune with what we see, simply because we can see what's happened in other markets before, so we can see what's worked, what hasn't worked. So I think we're a lot more educated around new platforms coming in and what are the actual benefits of it. Obviously, people who are part of global agencies get fed that information from global offices and can understand how these things work, and there's JBPs and global agreements. So it's a very kind of, I'd say, convoluted environment. But I still think that the state of digital in Africa is fantastic. Like, we're doing so much work across Southern Africa now, Namibia, Angola, Botswana, Mauritius as well. And, the uptake is really, really great. Inventory levels are fantastic. Inventory quality is fantastic. And agencies in these markets are incredibly switched on about what works for their clients and what won't work. So, it's good when you've got great products. It's not great when you've got terrible products pushing in there, because there's a lot more of a scrutiny that goes about choosing product partners in Africa.
I mean, in South Africa, I can see the state over there, because you guys have the opportunity to try a lot of platforms as compared to West Africa. No, even Nigeria, they get to try some platform. But in Ghana, it takes a long time for advertisers and agencies to try platform. If not working with people like you, then we don't get a chance to try, running media on other platforms. So that is, just my 2 cents on the state of advertising in Ghana. But then let's go into the main topic that set up this episode: social display. When you say social display, what does it actually mean in today's media ecosystem?
Great. So social display is essentially using content that lives on social platforms as creative in display and video environments. So, if we think about how something like a social media platform like a TikTok or Facebook or Instagram are walled gardens. So if you're creating content within those spaces, it's living in those spaces, and you can only promote it within those spaces. Social display is almost a ladder out of that walled garden to take the best performing content that you're seeing on social and create better performing and much better looking display ads that you can then run across programmatic advertising systems like DV360, for example. So the kind of thinking behind the creation of Spaceback specifically was that, we sit with amazing content on social media platforms because creative agencies go there first, right? They develop that social content first because it's for Valentine's Day, it's for Mother's Day, it's for Father's Day. It has to be on time. When that creative is launched there, as advertisers, we know that that creative is approved by client. It's already there on the platform, and we can see in real time what the audience is actually seeing, or interpreting that content as through likes, comments, shares. We've got all that kind of social indication. So the hypothesis was essentially saying, why are we creating additional banners for open exchange and premium environments on display and video when we've got amazing creative this side? So Spaceback and social display is literally a way to go take this and use it over there rather than, spending money on creating banners when you've already created social content. And it works across, most social content now lives in Meta, Instagram, and TikTok. So if your social display partner supports that, it's a great creative tool to then increase your reach outside.
From what you are saying, I'm going to look at it with two eyes here, as a creative and as a media person. For the creative, right, it saves time. This creative doesn't need to create additional assets for display platforms. And for the media person, it's just a matter of picking the asset that the creative design and just transporting it to display platforms, right? Which is totally perfect. But then I want to understand, why do you think this form of execution, that is social display, is often underutilized by agency? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know the data. But then why do you think social display is often underutilized by agencies?
Look, I think anyone in the agency space these days, there's a lot of work going along, right? I think about some of our partners here in South Africa where they're having to, or not having to, but they are dealing with 200 media owners in one market trying to get a share of spend. So a lot of the time, I think it comes down to you're only as like if you're out of sight to out of mind. So people will use it, they'll test it. And then, like I said in the beginning, it's a very kind of competitive space. So within, 2 or 3 weeks, there's a new product and there's always this innovation budget after it. So yeah, the guys that are working with us, predominantly from an always on point of view, see the value straight away. And it doesn't take more than about 2 to 3 campaigns to actually prove that to our clients. I think, there's also possibly a hesitancy to use it because I think the education level around social display isn't as great as it could be. And, that's partly due to me not doing a big enough job around like a category job. And we're working with that, we're working to do that quite strongly this year. But those that do pick it up and those that do start using it see the value straight away, and they eventually become kind of an always-on component to all of their campaigns.
Changes, it's difficult to change. We are used to display Google ads, DV360.
Yes.
Then we move social media, Meta ads. We are used. So I think you have to put in more work than here because you have to change our mindset.
That's what I'm on the podcast for, right? This is stage one of educating more people, right?
Yeah. So looking at social display, what I can pick from execution of social display is that performance-wise is great. Speed is great. And it's also an innovation, right? It's just a whole new angle altogether. Now,
yes.
And you are nodding your head, which means I'm correct here. So why are these three especially critical for agencies now?
Look, I think, in a world that we live in now that is dominated by the big three, really, and obviously it's dominated like that because it's global agreements, it's JBPs, there are not strings attached, but there are guardrails that are put in place. It goes back to why, we started working with social display is, I think, just the standard banners just get completely overlooked. They get blocked, they get skipped, they get ignored. There's a reason that ad blocker installs are rising every single year across Africa is because of really terrible creative and really terrible banners. Here in South Africa at the moment, we've got the scourge of online gambling banners on every single publisher site here. So me as looking at it from a consumer point of view, ad blindness is realer than ever. So I think what when social display comes into play is if you look at the ads, they don't look like ads. It looks more like content. And I think from a consumer point of view, consumers feel a little bit more comfortable interacting with these ads. Obviously, you have to get your targeting right. So you're targeting the right kind of offer to that right prospect. But still, it's a softer approach to advertising. And I think that is why we see a much higher level of performance from social display ads than we've ever seen on standard display. We've also seen it now, we've been testing a lot in the CTV space as well. So taking social video content and putting it on the biggest screen in the house on the same day. So, a brand comes out with a social, kind of a teaser campaign with a 15-second video on Facebook. We lift it off in the morning, make it a CTV ad, and in the evening, people who are watching CTV at home get to see this beautiful social media creative. Whereas, if we had to put it on TV, it would take a long time to book it in, and it would have been a long time ago. So we're able to move at that speed of culture, which is, I think, really important these days.
What changed in consumer behavior, or let me say platform capabilities, that makes social display more relevant today than, say, 2 to 3 years ago?
Again, I think, we're seeing, I keep mentioning TikTok, and maybe they're going to pay me for all the promotion I'm doing here. But I think, we're seeing a lot more of the population these days moving towards big social media platforms and spending the dominant time or dominant part of their browsing behavior in platforms like Instagram, like TikTok. People aren't going to news portals anymore to find things out. So, they're seeing the homepage takeovers and all of the fancy stuff we used to do 5-6 years ago. It's just not having much resonance anymore. I think, again, it goes back to the point is like, we're able to now lift influencer content that has been created by brands and make those ads. So people who are following these influencers are going, hey, like that is, again, I'm too old for influencers, but hey, that's Mr. Beast on an ad. Like I'm very much interested in that rather than just an ad saying, click here to find out more information. So I think we're doing a better job with social display at making ads relevant to the target market, as opposed to just the standard click here, find out more, learn more, book a test drive. We're actually being able to kind of use content that's been proven to work in that display environment, thereby kind of making it a lot easier for users to go, hey, I trust this, I'm going to interact with it.
So it's basically the trust factor that the audience have with their influencers, in this case influencers, it gets transported into display platforms. So they are familiar with the influencer. Okay, interesting. Now,
yeah, and I think it's also familiar with how how brands appear on social. Brands appear on social a lot differently to how they're appearing in display, because in social you have a caption, you have a large, exactly. And, all of the brands who are moving social first have seen this already. And that's why they're focusing on social first. So, being able to capitalize on that social first space and go, yeah, but that could work in display as well. Just think about it differently. That's where we're kind of pushing. Exactly. Yeah. Reach is far greater on the open exchange than any of the platforms. And, we forget, even though I'm saying people spend a lot of time in TikTok, we forget people are still logging on to websites to see sports scores, fashion, entertainment, news, business. That's never going to go away. But yeah, the advertising needs to get better on those sites.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say I'm an agency, right? And I want to run a campaign, a big campaign. Where does social display create the biggest efficiency?
Well, the creative is already built for you. So when we work with big agencies on massive campaigns, all they do is go and say to me, Danny, here are the posts that we've built for social. They're either live or they're pending. We build the ads out quite quickly. We then work with various partners in the SSP environment to find the greatest traffic and apply kind of contextual targeting. We apply attention targeting, all of these wonderful kind of new things. And then we're able to go live. So speed of going live is a lot faster. And then during campaigns, so mid-flight, we're able to take a post that you put out this morning during a campaign and create an ad out of that right now and get it into the mix straight away. So it's not like you have to build new creative and wait for 2 weeks before we can go live with it. We work with a very popular QSR brand here in South Africa that is currently expanding across Africa called Hungry Lion. And I think, we do daily deal creatives for them, working with their designers to kind of optimize for social display. And I think our campaign manager on that builds about 6 to 10 different ads every single day that go live as part of their always on campaigns. So, the frequency of messaging is great. You can put out different messaging. It just allows for a lot more control over creative than we've ever had before.
You mentioned PepsiCo at the top of the episode. That is actually one of the clients that you work with. But you can talk about PepsiCo, but I want to get a real campaign or maybe a case study where social display delivered unexpected results.
Gosh, there've been a few. I'll use Hungry Lion as an example because they're top of mind, and I've just referenced them now as well. So Hungry Lion has literally, they're opening 20 to 30 stores kind of every couple of weeks. They're really aggressively kind of expanding across Africa. And we're able to kind of give them the opportunity to, if they're open in Lesotho or Eswatini or Mauritius, we're able to just take that content straight away and get it into their mix right away so that they don't have to wait. Their stores are opening. We've got the traffic already running through there. So people who are kind of unaware of the brand when they're opening are already being shown the brand. So, when we talk about how social display kind of increases things or does really well for campaigns, we have to look at, obviously, from an engagement rate point of view. We see on average, and I think with Hungry Lion, we see on average between 5 and 8 times greater engagement results than they were seeing on standard banners. And this is true across a lot of the campaigns that we run and a lot of the brands that we work with. There's also a big kind of focus on viewability increases too. And obviously viewability is a lever we can pull in the DSP. But obviously, if we're running much better creative that's getting much higher engagement rates, the ads are going to be kind of performing better from a viewability point of view. So yeah, we see an average increase of about 20% on average viewability across industry standards. And like I said earlier, click-through rate-wise or engagement rate-wise, 5 to 8 times greater engagement rates on space-back creatives than standard banner creatives. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I'm talking and I'm going, yeah, I'm wondering if I'm trying to think of other ones as well.
No, it actually answers. It's perfect result. But what I'm getting from this conversation around social displays that, when it comes to the power of the advertising, which one wins? Some people will argue that creative always win. Others will also argue that it's the platforms. So it becomes like a tug of war between media agency and creative agency. But from what I'm getting out of social displays, that both wins. The platform is, the platform which is display is giving the campaign the number of eyeballs for the great creative that was performing well on social media platforms to work. Correct me. This is basically the power of social display, right?
Yeah, I think in my experience as well, it's like, and it might be a bit controversial to say, but when a campaign does great, the creative is lauded and awarded, and it was such a great creative piece. It did so well. When a campaign does poorly, it's media that gets it in the neck, right? Because we know that creative is 70%. I think it's 70%, and I might be making up stats here, but let's say it's 70% of the reason why people engage with campaigns is great creative. And that's been true for many, many years. So definitely, platform has a role to play. If you're going to use a great piece of creative and just put it across the open exchange with no targeting at all, it's not going to do well. So it's a bit of both. Like, we've always been really good from a programmatic point of view. Programmatic allows us to reach that right person, right place, right time with the right product. But if the creative isn't good enough there, you're going to miss out on it. So we're just, with social display, we're just plugging that creative gap where we're not asking for specific creative. We're choosing what creative we want to show to these people that we've spent so long trying to find on these massive platforms on the open web.
From your experience, what mistakes do you see agencies make when they are planning social display campaigns?
I think they spend with my competitors. That's the biggest mistake. Um, so yeah, as for the sake of this podcast, I don't have pod competitors. You just use Spaceback. Don't think of anything else. No, but seriously, no. Spaceback obviously created the category, but with any kind of valuable category where people see, companies doing well, there are going to be competitors entering the market. And I believe competition is the greatest thing because it forces us to kind of go, what's really good about our product and what can we keep speaking about? But a lot of the time, it's kind of a blessing and a curse being first to market because, you've got competitors walking into agencies going, hey, we've got a product that works just like Spaceback. And then people go with that and it doesn't work like Spaceback. And then the category takes a hit. And it makes my job twice as hard going in there again, going, here's Spaceback. And people go,
back.
Exactly, because then they go, no, we've tried it. And you go, no, you haven't.
Work.
No, we've tried something like it. And then, so that's it. But I think, the question around agencies making mistakes when it comes to social display is, I think, again, it comes back to an education side of things. I don't think we as RebelRebel have been, specifically in the last couple of years, as vocal about the benefits of social display as we were in the very beginning when we started launching it. It becomes a case of, let me reintroduce you to the product, let me reintroduce you to the category and reintroduce you to the kind of the benefits that come from it. And I was sitting with a client yesterday who mentioned, and this is why I'm obviously aware of TikTok not monetizing in many African markets, going, we've got so much content sitting on TikTok that we can't do anything with it. And it's going, hey, but, here's Spaceback. And they're like, oh, great. Yes, it works. We can use that as a bridge between the two. So it comes back to that point of there's so much available in market across Africa, different people talking about different creative opportunities, different media buying opportunities that I think agency folk are just so bombarded with innovation and new tech that it's difficult to rise to the top of that pack or that consideration set unless you're constantly educating and constantly writing blog posts and creating kind of noise around the products, really.
So if an agency is listening today, right, what's the first practical step you would recommend?
Well, obviously reach out to me and we'll chat about it. But I would, however, like when I'm looking at a prospect, I'm always checking out, first of all, which social platforms are they most active on, and are they actually doing a great job at building creative? So a lot of brands we've been working with, they might have a global Facebook page, for example, and there's not enough localized content on that space. So we will then go in and say, hey, we could start using this international content, but we'd need different copy, or we'd need kind of location specific, or I think country specific information to kind of make that work. But we generally just start with looking at how active they are on social, what are their actual objectives for a campaign like this, and kind of marrying the two, and then starting to build out demos showing them this is how it would look. These are the kind of target markets we could reach. We build out audience plans for them and then actually start targeting for it. So everything is on our side is done on a managed service approach. So we're able to kind of do all the media buying and everything and control that whole process end to end for them. But to start out understanding social display and diving into it is just how great is that brand's social presence? How relevant is it? I mean, there's a lot of brands as well where I've done this kind of prospecting, and the last time they've posted something on any of their pages is 2023. That's a difficult one. Yeah, that's a difficult one to make work, because if you don't have this fresh content, you might as well be using standard display banners then, because we can't serve you a deal from back then in 2026 and think that people are going to love it, right?
It's not relevant. Yeah.
No.
Also, Danny, looking ahead, how do you see social display evolving within the African digital advertising landscape?
So that's a great question, because that's currently kind of top of mind on my side. So we've been testing a lot of CTV formats here in South Africa, and we're starting to test CTV in the rest of Africa as well. The problem with CTV in Africa is the lack of quality inventory at this point. So, we have billions and billions of impressions of display and outstream, but I feel that digital, through social display is moving into a space where it can dominate a TV market, really. So I think looking forward right now, the biggest CTV supply source in Africa, at least in South Africa and the markets we're working in, we see YouTube being the dominant supply source. But as we start seeing more kind of free-to-air CTV inventory coming into play, when we eventually get the big streamer inventory into Africa, so Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime, I think that's where we're going to see a huge jump where social display is going to become the creative of choice, simply because we can move so quickly. And the guys at Spaceback are doing fantastic work on coming up with brand new formats that speak to the TV space. So, we're putting QR codes on TV ads that people can actually interact with. We're building out pause ads. So when people are pausing content, we're able to serve a social display ad in that pause space. There's great work being done in the virtual product placement space and the digital brand insertion space that Spaceback is also working towards. So, I think the next 2 to 3 years is going to be a very exciting time across Africa for social display and social CTV as well.
Exciting times ahead. Yes. All right. So finally, Danny, I want to know what mindset shift, right, do agencies need to make to fully unlock the value of social display?
I think agencies, the mindset that needs to kind of happen is that, they need to be aware of the fact that social display creates such a convenience for them. And, I've spoken at length to many agency people who, are working through weekends, working nights, just because it's so difficult to kind of get everything done that is expected of them from the brands that they work with. So what we pitch now when going into kind of big agency meetings is let us do the work for you. Social display can do all that work for you. Let us go and look through the content. Let us build the ads. Let us do the targeting based on your brief and just leave it with us. We'll be able to kind of help you find time. We'll be able to drive your campaigns to better results. So I think it really is like that. It's a convenience factor for me. And that's where my mindset is now, is that it's gone from this is an innovation buy to this is a convenience buy. And this is going to drive a lot more results than you're going to do with your standard display. And, many agencies, specifically the big kind of global agencies, they have their own kind of trading operations where they have their own DV360 teams, and they're running programmatic advertising for all of the brands. That space for me is where we're focusing a lot on, is actually building Spaceback into their workflows so that it becomes part and parcel of a programmatic campaign manager space where they can also play in the creative space as well as the kind of building space as well.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. From this conversation, what I got from this,
no problem.
I think we hit 33 minutes from this 33 minutes conversation. What I got was that you have to be social first if you are an agency and you want to execute social display. Not only that, your best asset that is performing well on social media platforms will get a chance to reach more people when you execute social display, which is so perfect. I mean, we want a lot of eyeballs on our best assets, right? All right, Danny,
yes.
I know where to reach out to you. But if someone wants to reach out to you, which is the first step they need to take when they want to execute social display, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, just email me on danny@rebelrebel.digital. You'll get a response as quick as possible, because that's what I do. I love working with clients, new clients, old clients, and just making advertising, helping brands and agencies build better advertising experiences for the consumers they're trying to reach. Just give me an email or reach out to me on LinkedIn. You'll find me there, Danny Greeff. Greeff with 2 Fs. I'll be in touch. 2 E's, 2 F's. Yeah. The 1 F thing drives me mad. 2 E's, 2 F's. And just give me a shout there and I'll be in touch as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on College of Social Media Podcast. I appreciate it.
No problem, Enoch. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you.